several times.
Yeah, we had another horse that did that because it was on Sleepy Hollow. Ralph was driving this wagon, and it was an empty wagon. It was just a, I don't know what you call it, buckboard type thing. And I was with Ralph, and we were coming back from the back 40. And that horse decided he wanted to get home faster than what he was going. We got to the driveway, coming around through that archway, the Sleepy Hollow archway, and the horse had to slow down a little bit to get through there. And Ralph said to me, "Jump, Rita, jump!" And I jumped, and that horse kept right on going, and he got, the door was close to the barn, and the horse jumped over the water tank and got high-centered, and there it was, a horse on one side of the tank and the wagon in the other, and Ralph is sitting there thinking, "Oh my God, what do I do now?" I'll never forget that. I was scared, and he was more scared, but he at least had presence of mind to tell me to get off that wagon.
Because I heard about it, I heard Ralph tell about it, I didn't see it. And in fact, I couldn't see how that horse could be on one side and the wagon on the other.
He was a determined horse, I'll tell you.
Well, then the problem is the same horses. Who mentioned Napoleon?
I did. That was an old race horse, right?
An old racehorse, right. It used to be a racehorse. It is an old plug and seen his years. Well, anyway, Lyle had a nice sleek horse, and we used him for riding horses. He's a bareback. Lyle made a little leather saddle type thing without stirrups. Well, Lyle's horse was always faster than mine. It's a better riding horse. I had that old knife-like ridge back.
Ouch.
On Napoleon. Well, Lyle said, "I'll give you a good start ride and I'll race you home." So, all right, I got the old Napoleon going just as fast as he would go, droning and everything, every step he made. And here comes Lyle, feet just clattering. They went by me, and Napoleon must remember his racing days. He took off, and I slid almost to the very well, hanging out where the deal line. And I finally got my balance and got back where I was supposed to be. And Napoleon didn't let that horse gain 1 foot for the rest of that trip home. He stayed right with Lyle's horse all the way. And I was lucky to stay with him.
You brothers were so excited that even as young as I was, that stands out in my mind. And, even the name of the horse. Because you were yakking about that when you got home. How Napoleon took off, by golly, he wasn't going to let that other horse beat him.
As a racehorse, he must have been trained not to really take the lead. He was quite happy to stay on the flank of the horse ahead of him. I wanted to go ahead. He was doing so well.
So he didn't actually get ahead. He was just trying to.
Oh no, he just stayed right behind, just made the same pace all the way.
He had a good philosophy. Not everyone can be first.
Yeah.
Maybe he had an owner that didn't want to win.
Well, he was probably waiting for
I
us.
wouldn't be surprised.
That's what I was thinking of. Fix races.
Or maybe he was waiting for the whip, too.
Vilas Park with
I
us.
sure do.
And I know that he lost his balance and flipped over backwards and knocked himself out cold.
Yeah, I remember that.
I remember on 4th of July, instead of shooting off firecrackers, he was shooting off dynamite.
Oh,
That's what made the
that
big
sounds
bang.
like Dad.
Yeah, you remember that, don't you?
I don't remember that, I know, but it doesn't sound unlike Dad. Now, don't you kids dare do.
John, now you know where your dad got all this
Yes.
daredevil stuff.
Did you have family reunions back in the 20s and 30s where you had the Fords, the Menigos, all together, or
I
just the
think there
Fords and the
was
Hawleys?
One that I remember, and I wasn't allowed to go. I only remember one. Doris, do you remember any? No.
The Elbert family and us used to get together a lot, either at their place or out on the farm, and we always had a lot of fun. The Alberts were family both ways. We were very close.
Absolutely.
That's true. We were.
I
Not
think
enough.
it
I
might
always
have-
thought when you moved to town that we hardly ever saw you. And when Jean and I lived that distance apart, we, I think, made it a point to make sure we got together. Because You know,
I think
you
that
see
you-
each other, but
Yeah, you and Gene were left out more. Glenn
Yeah.
and Glenn right between Ralph and myself, so it was either with us or with
well,
Ralph.
he had Rita. It was me that was left out.
Yeah, and I remember you mentioned it, feeling left out too.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
Your mother used to say, you take Doris with you. And Betty said, oh, she's a girl.
Well, they had one party, a reunion, I thought it was a reunion, and that was at that summer home, across from Lucerne Farm. And you made it into a summer home then,
Oh, yeah.
I think, yeah. And we used to live there in the early days when we was kids.
Yeah.
Okay, well anyhow, they had, I believe it was Aunt Betty and Uncle Arthur that probably threw this shindig. And they had ice cream, homemade piles of it. And us kids went out in the field and we'd pull a watermelon open and eat the heart and throw the rest away. All of us, Lyle, I'm sure.
Yeah, we had so many melons.
We grew
Oh,
yeah,
man.
true.
And it was just wonderful. You could not ask for a better sickness.
Watermelon ice cream.
Not only that, Clarence, that was just the perfect ammunition. After you
Oh,
finished
yeah.
eating, you break it up and start throwing it.
Well, the big kids would pick on the little kids.
Yeah.
And that's where I learned to run.
I remember one time, but I don't know if it was then. And I'm not sure Glenn was home. I think he was yet. But I was, Rita was at her place.
Up in the hill?
No, this was out on the farm. And we had moved out there for the summer after much, much work on getting it ready. And all of a sudden, I heard Clarence say, let's get Doris.
Uh-oh.
I ran in the house and I went out my folks' bedroom window and it was pitch dark. And I walked all the way up to your place and it was pitch dark. I was scared silly.
What were you
Clarence
going to
was
do?
Yeah, which one was that? I wonder.
I don't remember. That's a convenient memory.
That's because you didn't get me.
Who was I talking to?
You're just the boys, you and Donald and Gene and
With a memory like
Glenn.
that, Clarence, you could be president.
I never could take Clinton's place.
My folks were mighty surprised to see me come in out of the dark.
Oh, I
Because
guess.
if I was as good as Clinton, I would have remembered Naughty Nancy.
Doris, or Ray, whoever wants to answer this, why was Ralph called Albie?
Glenn.
Glenn was called Albie?
Yeah.
Okay, why was Glenn called Albie?
His name was Elbert.
Albert,
No.
no, but
Last name was Elbert.
No.
Yeah, but that wasn't there
He
some...
was,
Oh, that was
Go ahead,
I
go
think
ahead,
that
Doris.
was
no.
the only reason.
Glenn told me once it was because he had this fascination with airplanes. And it's the albatross,
Oh, that could
the
be.
flying albatross, the bird.
Remember-
And so they started calling him albatross, and that's too long, so they called him Albie.
Yeah, that's what I remembered.
Oh,
Both
fair
Glenn and Ralph were into making model airplanes out of balsa wood.
Never too old to learn, I guess. That's news to me.
Really?
Yeah.
They were really good at that. They built them airplanes with a wingspan like this. Huge, and they
Balsa
were
wood,
well
and you cover
done.
them with tissue paper.
Right.
Yeah, and wind up rubber
I made them
bands.
too.
And then, yeah,
And actually, what Glenn was he was a glue sniffer.
he was what?
That airplane cement, he worked for hours. Mother would have to go up and get him and bring him down, and he'd be so happy and so.
oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
boy.
And she realized this wasn't good for him.
Well, he made airplanes that flew blocks and blocks out there.
He
Him
made
and
his own
Ralph
little
both.
motors.
I didn't see the
Yeah, he had
motors.
made gas.
With the rubber
motors.
bands.
These were
Oh,
rubber
gas,
bands.
too.
on the
Yeah,
side.
gas.
Yeah, the rubber bands, I know.
That, you can get these kids now, and I think,
And they
oh,
had
they don't know what they're
non-touch.
doing.
See who
This
could
is
fly the
baby's
furthest.
play compared to what Glenn used to do.
He had a radio-controlled
Yeah.
model, and he'd bring it up to John's Lake And he'd try to get it to go, and I'd say, Glenn, doesn't the lake have to be smoother? And he said, no, you really need a little bit of chop so that there's less drag, so that on the pontoons there's some air instead of all water. Well, he brought it up 2 or 3 years in a row and could never get it up. And finally, one year in 1971, he brought this, the thing was red and it had a wingspan of about 6 feet. And the water was just right, I guess, and it went up and he flew it around. Our lake is about 70 acres, and it flew it around all the cabins on the shore, and it made 3 or 4 circles of the lake before it ran out of fuel. And when he heard it and he guided it back to our pier, it came in and settled down right in front of our pier. And people all around the lake had come down to watch us, and they all were applauding like this. So it was such a great flight. He sent it up again, and he gave the radio control to me.
Oh.
That was
And the plane.
Within 20 seconds, the plane was in the water,
Oh.
diagonally straight north of our pier, and missed a couple of guys in a fishing boat by about the length of the table here. Busted the wing off. The plane never flew again because Glenn died that fall.
Oh. Oh.
I always wondered if the trauma of losing that plane had anything to do with it.
What week was that, Gene?
And it wasn't even my idea to
John's like,
fly it. I mean, you know.
No, he was sharing. He was a nice kid. Nice kid. He was mad. He lost his plane once, and before I was married, and he'd come out of the army, and this was a plane that was pretty
It
old.
was the same plane.
Yeah, same plane. And he flew it out over near Lake Wingra, and it ran out of gas, and it was gone. So we went and hired an airplane he could fly, and he had me spotting for him. And we went up and we found it in the marshes. It was, hard to see it because it was down in the grasses, but we found it.
But it was red.
It was
Fortunate.
Does anybody remember the story of Ralph when he was a kid and got a bee in his pants?
Yes.
What volume?
No, I wasn't there.
Rita, what volume of stories would that be about Ralph? I mean, stories this high about Ralph, aren't there?
26th chapter.
Well, Ralph was always very frightened of the bees. For some reason or other, the bees use us.
Yeah, they do.
Well, it is true. People who are frightened will give off a scent that is no wild animal
Adrenaline.
detects this,
Yeah,
and
true.
the bee that. Well, anyway, this one bee got into Ralph's pants, and Ralph was just scared stiff. Around the house he goes, and I don't know, somebody loud said to take off your pants or something. Get the bee in my
What
pants,
do
the
I
bee
do?
in my
What do I
pants.
do? Take your pants off.
Yeah, they come around, here he comes. No pants.
I had a girlfriend there staying with me for the weekend, for the first visit, and she took it all in.
Was her name Harris?
It might have been, I don't remember.
I remember.
Wisconsin.
Do you remember up in town, when you were in town and you had sort of a hill across the road from you, and you kids used to go up there and tuck yourself into inner tires
Oh, yes.
and roll down the hill?
Yeah. That's when the tires were bigger and we
Bigger,
were smaller.
and we were smaller. Well, Ray very carefully tucked me in and gave me a push, and it didn't work. I fell out and hit my head, was knocked out, and
What day do you remember that?
yeah, I'll never forget that. That was the last time I ever did anything really dangerous.
Ray?
Do you remember when you and Rita warned me about climbing the windmill?
Go up on the hill?
No,
Oh,
the
Doris?
back of your
Right,
house
back
on,
on- yeah,
in
you were-
Hancock, right up
Yeah, I
down.
think you went anyway.
No, you cured me of that. You don't remember that?
No.
What'd
I
she-
knew-
I was gonna climb the windmill. Remember right behind the big house in
Well, I
Hancock?
remember the Windmills,
Yeah.
Well,
right.
this is
And I was gonna go to the
Uncle
top of that. And, I told Doris and Rita, I was gonna do this. And I was getting ready, she says, no, you better not. Uncle Arthur said he would whack you off, you like us.
Make a girl out of it.
Make a girl out of me. If I climbed that. He said, I never, ever went near that thing again.
That must have been
You
Rita.
don't remember that?
I can't imagine Uncle Arthur saying that.
No,
I
he
can't
wouldn't.
either.
We said he would.
Huh? Yeah, you said it. I guess you didn't want me climbing the windmill.
We weren't allowed to do that.
You stopped me.
That windmill makes me think, it isn't your windmill, but the one we had.
Oh, you had a great one.
And Ralph was always doing some darn cool thing. And so here I was riding the pull on an unbroken pull to follow his mother around. I had a bridle on it and bareback, but he followed its mother. Well, Ralph was washing the car. Well, what better thing to do than to scare that horse away out? Whoosh, he goes with his washcloths and that scared the devil out of that little horse. And I slid off and there's long range of foot of the bridle.
Yeah.
And that horse lickety split one of the neighbors and lickety split his back, dragging me all over. My head came off that far from that windmill.
Oh, Ray.
Well, I was pretty well breathed up.
I would think
Were,
so.
were you there the day, we had that airplane swing that my dad had made? Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Built
Really
like an
remember
airplane?
that.
Oh,
Oh, I love it. Well, after we outgrew that, we had hung a trapeze, or at least there was a trapeze there. And my brother Glenn was teaching me how to hang by my knees, and somebody called him from out in front. And the whole bunch of the boys just left me hanging there. And I passed out. And I fell to the ground and I had a little concussion. I was poorly treated.
And your mother, it was her fault because they said, take Doris with them.
The thing I remember doing is playing tag. I love to play tag. And we would vault off the porch, over the railings and to get away. And then we got a little bigger and we started playing down in the barn more. And I don't know how high those barn doors were, but I remember many times you vault out of the barn door. It was like 10 or 12 feet up.
I never did it. I was smarter than the rest of you.
Oh, I liked to do that. I thought that was fun. I think there was a little bit of Ralph in me in part of the
They
time.
couldn't run. We used to go hand over hand up a vertical pipe.
Oh, yeah.
Across the limbs, and I always went a different way than my brothers. They'd go on top of them. I'd go underneath. I could move my legs, my arms, and I could really scoot underneath the limbs. Over to the next trapeze, and I'd almost like a monkey when I think back. Because I would hang on here and drop my legs, and my legs would swing over to the trapeze, and I'd grab it up, and down I would go. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You and Lyle, I think, were the fastest, weren't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You guys go twice as fast as any of us. Up that long pole, must have been, what, 30-foot high or something?
It was pretty high.
Hand over hand. Right?
That was
Lyle would go hand over hand.
Yeah. And you use your feet.
And I would use my feet.
Yeah.
And,
I can remember you guys going after each other.
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah, it was
It looked like Tarzan.